Welcome back to Tarot by the Bay. I'm David. In a week of videos, which will probably be best known as Fani Willis Week on this channel, with the upcoming Georgia election interference indictments. It'll be number 4 for Trump being indicted. There'll be a number of readings you can imagine this week regarding the Fulton County election interference case that Fani Willis is bringing against Donald Trump. In the news was reporting that Lieutenant Governor, former Republican Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan is going to appear before the Fulton County grand jury to testify about efforts from Trump to overturn the 2020 election. And he's supposed to show up on Tuesday. So, how is that going to go? Because I tried to do a little bit of research on Mr. Duncan, and when you do a name search in Google, all that shows up is this latest news. I wanted to find out what his opinions were back in the day. I never got as far as that. What I did see on one of the recent reportings was he was in the Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer and commented to Wolf that if you look at the messaging from Trump and his lawyers, it appears unhinged and not tethered to reality. And I think that message alone should give you hope that he's not going to go there and plead the fifth all the time, because Georgia didn't overturn the election. So there'd be no reason for him to plead the fifth. And he's not pleading the fifth because he would want to be protecting Donald Trump. And he sure as heck isn't going to go in there and lie for this guy. I think a lot of people have learned their lesson that the only reason why you lie for Trump is because you're more culpable for something. And that lying might get you off on that. So expect this guy's going to go in and be factual as to what happened. And it probably won't. And again, facts matter, and facts are not the friend of a habitual liar like Donald Trump. Entertainment purposes only. Come on down. Let's see how Geoff Duncan is currently feeling about this situation. Then we'll ask about his testimony. Okay, so he's going forward, bringing that information to the court case. He thinks he's got stuff that's valuable, information that needs to be held. And now the Page of Swords could be like the spy in the camp. You know, I think in some ways he feels, is reticent the right word? He doesn't really want to do it because he feels like he's betraying the Republican Party. But at the same time, guy's got to do what guy's got to do in this case, because Trump is the one who caused all these problems. You're being asked to testify under oath in a court of law. And this Page of Swords could also just be the ham-fisted nature of Trump and company trying to find 11,000 votes to overturn the election in Georgia. In the past, you've got the victory card. This is the Georgia election going to the Democrats. And even for Joe Biden, that is, in the 2020 presidential election. And even though the Republicans would have probably just as well hoped that Trump had won, fair was fair. That's how the Georgians voted, and that's what ended up happening. Current situation is the Star. Telling the truth and bringing that truth forward in these cases is very important. You're going to have a number of Republican politicians that are going to be testifying, and their testimony in these trials is going to be very important. And it's really going to be what makes the case. Now, in this case, this is for the grand jury, but he's going to be one of the star witnesses. He was the former lieutenant governor of Georgia. And if he's saying that how Trump was in his cronies or pressuring the election to be overturned, he's not Stacey Abrams. He's not some liberal Democrat progressive that some Republicans on the jury might hate. He's a lieutenant governor that they voted for. And they've got to believe somebody at some point, the credibility. But I imagine the grand jury's heard enough information that turning indictments not going to be a problem. But there have been a lot of star testimonies. His will be among them that basically spell out what happened and who was doing it. Yep, there you go. Overarching is the Hermit. They are the folks that were behind the scenes, and they can shed the light on what was happening behind the scenes. So you've got the star being illuminated by the Hermit. So yeah, the great combo right there for truth coming out. And basically truth coming out. Honest testimony. Lesson to be learned from these cards is the Two of Pentacles. It'll be interesting if he's questioned if he was conflicted. His testimony might show his confliction that, he's been hearing a lot about the 2020 election interference and maybe he wanted to investigate it more, but I think that there was no there, you know what I mean? And that's what all the court cases showed. There was just no there. And so he had to sort of balance, what are my duties? Do I pledge loyalty to the Republican Party, or do I pledge loyalty to the Constitution and the members of Georgia? And he chose the latter. He chose to honor his oath of office. But I think he understands why other people didn't. So he was put in that position, and fortunately for him, he made the enlightened choice. So he doesn't have anything to worry about come testimony time, and he brings value to it. Outcome is the Ace of Cups. I think he's going to resonate well with the jury, with this grand jury. He's going to resonate really well with them. I think he's going to come across as sincere and human to them, a reliable witness, a star witness. And he might be one of the last witnesses that testifies before these indictments start coming out. Because to me, this is that completion. You've got the Ace of Cups, that powerful push, and then you've got the Ten of Cups underneath this whole thing. The Ten of Cups underneath this whole thing, showing you've completed it. His testimony sort of completes things, and now you have a big emotional push that comes afterwards, which is probably going to be, in his thoughts, he's going to be relieved that he's done his testimony. It's going to be a big stress reliever off of him, and he's glad he's going to be done. I realize I started off asking how he was feeling, and I went right to the trial, but I think those two are really going to be linked on that one. Let's get these things shuffled up here. Yeah, you can imagine how difficult this is for the Republicans that were in power, and forgive the term, but the good old boy network that they've got going on in Georgia and other southern states, or heck, any state where you have established wealthy white males in charge. The adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's that sort of thing. And how hard it is for them to actually be forced to make a moral judgment. Before for decades, they didn't have to do that. The Republicans had a message that resonated with people, especially in the southern states. And, they were comfortable. They could be themselves and espouse those conservative values, and people bought into it. But as younger people came on and started voting more progressive, instead of adjusting their message or getting young conservatives in who are more open-minded than the older conservatives, they opted to just stick by their guns and then start changing the landscape to better suit their ability to stay in power, rather than ceding power to the younger people. And it's manifested all the way to what we have now. The only people that are in power are extremists, at least on the Republican Party, in gerrymandered, very red states. And again, just as a word of caution, the exact opposite thing could happen if the Democrats ever became a minority party. And this is not to slam on progressives, but the progressives are the more extreme end of the Democrats. Now, can you imagine if the Democrats barely had power and then the progressives started making all sorts of demands, or else they wouldn't support the Democrats, and the Democrats started redistricting and cheating? It would be the same thing, but just the left extreme. And we don't want that. You need at least a two-party system for checks and balances. Yeah, it slows everything down, and you have to deal with the other side. But, that's... they say we come down to earth to experience the yin and the yang. The two sides of everything. It's really annoying. But, it's the lesson to be learned. That's that position up here. All right, so how's this going to play out in the courts? Page of Pentacles. All right. He's going to go forward with his message in his testimony. And I think that this again, I don't think there's going to be many more testimonies. I think after he's done, this starts going to the jury. I think it's like, okay, I've given the information I need, and now the case goes to the jury. Now the prosecutor says to the jury, okay, here's the judge overseeing it. Time for you guys to come to a decision. In the past, Ace of Pentacles, I think this jury, it's funny how this is, because you've got the Pentacles here, coming forward with that information and something of value. In the past, the jury has gotten a lot of information. A ton of information that's come in. And his is kind of like the crowning achievement on a dragon treasure hoard of treasure. This is the Arkan stone on top of the pile of gold. All right, so then after he's done, things are going to go quiet. For him, it's going to be quiet because he finally gets to go home and relax, which was kind of, that strong emotional reading. Now he's going to go recover. But I think now the jury, it's like he gives his testimony, and now the jury goes back to vote on the indictments. I don't think it's going to be a long deliberation, because I only think you need half the jurors, or half plus one, in order to get an indictment. Over it all, the overarching energy of this situation is the Nine of Cups. So you got your judge and jury. I think the prosecutors are sitting there, or I should say, you've got your district attorney and all the judges behind them, or you could call that the jury. But basically, I think the prosecutors, or Fani Willis, know she's put together a solid case. Extreme confidence in this whole process. And the lesson to be learned, and this is why the confidence is there, she knows she has negotiated through the BS. That by bringing in, like, lieutenant governors and such, you can't just say it's a witch hunt. By bringing in the mountain of evidence that they brought in, the jurors can't say, it's he said, she said. There's too much going on here for them to be deluded by, the social media ramblings of a former president of the United States. She knows she's nailed this. This to her was her biggest challenge. She had to get through the cult-like mentality. She had to get through the brainwashing, and I believe she's done that. And she believes she's done that. Outcome. Welcome to your next Jack Smith, my friends. Outcome, King of Swords. Indictments, here they come, baby. So, her and Jack Smith, both. I wonder if this card's now going to represent both Fani Willis and Jack Smith. I'd love it if the Queen of Swords represented Fani Willis, but hey, King of Swords energy there, King of Swords energy there. It's just going to make it harder for me to read when this comes up if I'm talking about Fani or Jack. Underneath it all, victory, baby. Oh yeah, she nailed him. There are going to be a bunch of indictments that come out of this. I'm telling you, this next week, it's going to be a really interesting challenge getting my work done so I can race home from work and record videos for y'all, because that news is going to be breaking fast, especially because they're on the East Coast, so I lose those 3 hours because I'm on the West Coast. So, You're going to get a lot of Georgia politics and Trump indictments with your morning coffee next week. Just give you that heads up. I hope it doesn't ruin the taste of your coffee. Yeah, one last thing. I do want to ask one last thing here. What's the lesson to be learned? What is the lesson to be learned from this Georgia case? I seldom ask that. I do the news, but then I forget to look at that bigger spiritual meaning on that one. So let's do that real quick. What's the lesson to be learned from this Georgia? Hopefully, it gives you confidence that the red states aren't completely filled with cult members. You know what I mean? That there's hope for due process and the rule of law in the United States. What's the lesson to be learned? Fight, fight, fight. Don't give up the fight. Keep fighting. Yes, you're tired. Yes, it just seems like overwhelming and it's slow, but you got to keep fighting. You got to push all the way to the end, because when you push all the way to the end, that's where you get your victory. And throw all of them. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, you got to fight. Don't be discouraged. Don't let the illusions and delusions that are being propagated by Trump and others slow you down. You're on the right side of history. You're the bright shining star. And the folks that testified, the folks that prosecuted this case, again, this card came up as the lesson to be learned. This was what needed to overcome. This was the undercurrent of this case, was can you overcome the brainwashing and the lies and the propaganda? And the answer was, yes, you can. You just got to keep going. You get the best witnesses you can because you're on the right side of history. You will have great success by doing that. You're opening the door for people who have been deluded by the news that they've been listening to and the propaganda. You're opening the door and welcoming them back. Hey, the truth's been here the whole time. We don't hate you for what you did, but we need you on board to help win this fight. Because if you don't do the fight, then people won't uncouple themselves from the devil. They will stay chained to the devil. And even despite all that, there will be people that will still chain themselves to the devil. But understand, and this is going to be hard, but understand that this is a free will choice of theirs. Now, maybe some of them are still duped. Maybe some just plain don't care. But it's their choices, and it's their life, their choices, and they get all the benefits and all the consequences of their choices. The hard part for us is their choices impact us and provide resistance for us. And that's really annoying, because the last thing that we want is more resistance than what we're already facing. But I think what's happening with this Georgia case is that resistance goes down, because less people are inclined to stay chained to this person. So you need the resistance in order to build the muscle mass, so to speak. You can't lift weights in space because there's little gravity providing muscle resistance. That's why when you're on Earth and you lift weights, you build muscles. And that's one of the analogies I've heard for our little spiritual journey in these meat suits of ours, is that you build up strength with the challenges that we face. So, if they don't want to let go, they don't want to let go. They can't say they were never told. Free will choices, and we're here for our free will. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. Thank you for all my subscribers for leaving your comments and your hearts and feeding the algorithm. Welcome to all the new subscribers to the channel. I hope you find these readings enlightening and insightful. Not too much snark in this one, but the snark does show up. Have a great one, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.